Atlanta for the second year in a row to me does done the weirdest thing in the draft that I can remember. They win the award for the second year in a row for weirdest selection, weirdest trade, whatever. The point that I went, what? Like, out of anybody. I mean, get Jalen Walker. Okay, I love that. Georgia guy, culture, does multiple things on the defense. But what they traded to get James Pierce, after a pick before, we saw the Giants didn't have to trade away a first-round pick to get Jackson Dart. Now, I know they didn't come for as far back, but by all due accounts, from anybody you talk to in football, James Pierce, there was some character things. There's a good chance he would have been on the board a little later. That was some haul to give away. You follow the trade charts, right, Mike? There's no way the trade charts are at all favoring Atlanta Falcons in this. That was totally swayed in one direction. And that, to me, I mean, now the Rams, F them picks has become F. We got a lot of damn effing picks. That's what they got going forward here. But that was a shocking moment for me when I read the trade details.
It was a 20-spot jump from 46 to 26. And it conceptually, sometimes it's difficult to get people to understand how this works, because some people will look at this and say, well, the Rams gave up the Falcons devoted 2 first-round picks to James Pierce Jr. No, they used their second-round pick and they packaged a first-round pick. They did a 2 and a 1 to move up to get him. They didn't give up 2 first-round picks to get him, but they used the first-round pick that they acquired with a 2 and a 1 to get him. And every time you use a first-round pick, you're basically trading that first-round pick for the player you're acquiring. When you think of it that way, these picks do seem a lot more valuable. And I'm trading my first-round pick for this unproven guy versus I could trade that first-round pick for a proven guy. But in this case, the Falcons traded their second-round pick and next year's first-round pick for James Pierce Jr. And, yeah, they're going to defend it. They're going to defend it. But I feel like when Sean McVay was talking about it after the draft, he felt like he should be wearing a ski mask as he ran away from the scene of that robbery.
I'm just telling you that's I'm not like making this up or whatever. The trade chart they got whooped here. This is a whooping. There's no doubt about that. Mike, if you get done with the show today and you call some of your friends or whoever who has some trade charts, you tell them to check it out a little bit. And I guarantee it's going to be like, whoa, this is actually one of the more unbalanced trades we've ever seen. That's what we're going to see here. So,
yeah. And that's I'm going to talk about 2 things. I'm going to defend this trade, but I'm also going to kind of emphasize a little bit more because Atlanta Falcons, because I made a video talking about the trade and the imbalance of it. And Atlanta Falcons fans are really upset in that regard. But I've kind of changed my mind a little bit to it. But you can still be aggressive. You could have still got these players, but it doesn't mean you needed to give up what you gave up. And so many Falcons fans seem so resistant to that idea that the trade itself wasn't imbalanced. And multiple things can be true. You could say, I appreciate the aggressiveness of the Falcons. I wish they gave up less, et cetera, that they didn't have to necessarily give up what they gave up, and that they still could have drafted him. They could have had their cake and eat it too, but they're really high on this guy. This guy fell down. We know a lot of players that sometimes like those can be the steals of the draft, especially when they fall down either because of an injury, that's totally fine, or, culture, off the field issues, et cetera, et cetera. And, a lot of Falcons fans brought up kind of like Jalen Carter. The difference was that Jalen Carter was going into an established culture, an established winning roster with many, many established Super Bowl winning veterans. So they had true leadership. They had the ability to bring in this Jalen Carter, who had potentially had issues. They already had some Georgia players. Like they had the infrastructure. They had just won a Super Bowl 5 years prior, and the year before they went to a Super Bowl. Those things matter. But with all that said, it's still an example why you don't just 100% jump and be like, oh, well, this guy fell, therefore you should be squeamish about him. But, the best comment that I saw on this which was from Travis O'Shea. He says, I loved it. The guys they got are both going to be studs. I mean, they are taking a big swing. They got 2 edge rush guys that can and will get to the quarterback and be great players for them. They have their young quarterback, a great running back, and got some weapons on offense, probably one of the best safeties in football. We always talk about teams being aggressive and taking swings. They did. Now, that's the big thing that made me really be like, you're right. I always talk about these teams about being aggressive. I always talk about teams saying how they have to go for it, that, you got to take big swings. And here the Falcons did. They took a big swing, and you either live or die by that, and I think that's totally fair. It's like, it's really that point is when I was kind of like, yeah, you're right. Because I talk about so many of these teams that are just kind of trapped in no man's land. And I'm like, take a big swing, take a big swing, take a big swing. But it is tough when, and again, Atlanta Falcons fans are still very defensive about this. Signing Kirk Cousins, and it's not hindsight 2020, signing Kirk Cousins to the massive deal that they did, and then drafting Penix, and then benching Cousins, with, however many games, and now trying to move on from Cousins, trying to keep Cousins as a backup right now, which is just absurd. Like, it is just a bad chain of events. I love the Penix pick, and I love Michael Penix. I've been praising Penix, and I believe what this team can do, and I made a whole argument, especially when the season was over, the day it was over, the day that they did not make the playoffs. And I was like, I ripped the Falcons because I was like, you could have made the playoffs. You could have won this division. You should have made the playoffs. You should have won the division. You should have pivoted to Penix sooner. Penix looks awesome right now. Absolutely awesome. And now you're in this situation where you found yourself on the outside looking in. And so now I believe that if all things equal, you start this up again and now have Penix starting, the Falcons are right there to win the division, and they're right there in the playoff hunt. And now you take a big swing and say, we're going all in on defense right now. We are going for it. We are going to majorly improve our ability to get to the quarterback, get after them, get better field position, force turnovers, and then watch Penix get to work. It's like, yeah, I love that. I mean, what really hurt the Washington Commanders, like, Jaden Daniels was special. Jaden Daniels was different. Had a historic, like, legitimately historic rookie season. And at the end of the day, it was like defense. Like, I know the Commanders went out and they wanted to boost their O-line, and they wanted to boost their some weapons, getting Debo, and like, that's all great too. Like, do that as well, obviously, if you have the ability. But it was really like defense. It was really defense. It wasn't like, oh, if Jaden Daniels had another wide receiver or like a better running back. Like, again, all that stuff is always going to help you. But it was really defense that really ultimately did the Commanders in more than anything. I mean, just look no further than giving up 55 points. And yes, I know they fumbled, and that was caused by the Eagles' defense, but they still let the Eagles go 7 for 7 in the red zone. 7 for 7 in the red zone. And at that point, it has nothing to do with turnovers. Your defense can either lock them down and slow them down in the red zone or not. The red zone is its own brand of football, both offensively and defensively. It's like its own playbook, essentially. And so it's like, you either can stop them or you're not, or you don't. You either force them to try to consider, do we go for it on fourth down? Do we kick a field goal? Then you have a missed field goal. You go for it on fourth down. You don't get it. Like, you change the game. Their defense could just like kind of also slow down the Eagles. It's like, it changes everything. And there's many other games. The Eagles and the Ravens played each other, and the Commanders and the Ravens played each other. And the real key difference was the defense. It was the Eagles won because of their defense completely hampered Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, and the Commanders' defense did not. So it's like, if we go with that kind of logic here and say, hey, Penix with this offense is going to be pretty legit. And we already have some great weapons to work with. if we get ahead of this and double down on defense and get this ball rolling, like, we can be disruptive. We can be disruptive. We can get after the quarterback and make make Michael Penix's life significantly easier from the jump. Because they were asking him to kind of like get after it. Seriously. They were like, oh, can you win us games in overtime? Can you win in a shootout? I know this is only like your second game ever, but like, can you please just go for it? And it's just like, it's a tough spot. And he succeeded too. He succeeded with flying colors. So, not going to necessarily knock a team for being too aggressive. You definitely put yourself in the position where it either works or you don't. But I still think it could have been done better. I do firmly believe that, and I do believe that it's hard to have trust in management, because again, Falcons fans still want to kind of back themselves in a corner, like, oh, hindsight, this, or they didn't know Penix was going to be available. It was bad decision making. You can't deny that. It was bad, and it's okay to accept that. Like, that's the thing. It's okay to accept that. Denver Broncos fans did it with Russell Wilson. They did not try to twist it around. And that's also the benefit of also just cutting the player, just being like, get out of the building. Get rid of Russ. Just get out. We're not going to try to trade you. We're not going to try to do it. Just get out. Like, that is the benefit. And so, again, I'm looking at the Falcons as a whole and what they potentially can do. And their mistakes last year, which is not hindsight 2020, it was their direct decisions that they made last season. They absolutely, positively should have been in the playoffs and won the division. But it was their decisions that ultimately led them not to. And they backed themselves in the corner, giving all that money into Kirk Cousins, having a no trade clause, realizing that Penix was clearly better, but they had to get something out of Kirk Cousins. Hope for the best. He went downhill. They waited too long. They lost too many games. And when you threw Penix in there, he was awesome. He was absolutely awesome. So yeah, when I look at a team making decisions that directly led them to not make the playoffs when the path was clearly there, you're under scrutiny. There's heightened scrutiny, and you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. The Eagles were under a magnifying glass from 22 to 23. They go to a Super Bowl, and it's like, hooray, we came up short. And then 23, with the coordinators, it was a disaster. The defense was awful. Howie Roseman and Sirianni and the Eagles franchise as a whole was under a massive magnifying glass, under a microscope. Massive. And they were like, how did you go from a Super Bowl? How did Jalen Hurts go from a top quarterback to just turn the ball over nonstop? Who did you hire as these coordinators? What the heck happened to this defense? What is going on with this offense? What happened? And it was, you had to reconcile with it. And because they faced reality, they said, okay, we got to make changes. And they went out and got Fangio, Kellen Moore, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Saquon Barkley. They went out and made the moves. They made the moves. That's the benefit of acknowledging reality. That is the benefit of acknowledging the mistakes that you made and identifying the mistakes. And then you fix them, and it leads to a Super Bowl win. Honestly, it's actually so beautiful that the Eagles went to a Super Bowl in 22, collapsed in 23, hired a new coaching staff essentially, went out and got players, draft and paid for them, and then won the Super Bowl. Like, it just goes to show you that that's what happens when you don't double down. Again, look at the Dallas Cowboys. They come up short multiple years in the playoffs, and they're like, no, we're good. We don't got to make any moves here. I believe in this coaching staff. I believe in this team. And then it gets you nowhere. Literally nowhere. So, I'm not out here telling you that the Falcons are trash or that they're a poverty franchise or they're going nowhere. But it's just like, it's okay to acknowledge mistakes and not pretend like they don't exist. And you hold your team accountable. And when you hold them accountable, that's how they get better. So I'm excited to see how this all, comes to fruition. I really do love, at the end of the day, trying to significantly increase the quality of this defense, and just making the life easier for Michael Penix. But yeah, again, I know a lot of people like that. He's saying it's the weirdest selection. I don't know if it's considered to be the weirdest selection. Caught me off guard. It was aggressive, and I don't believe it needed to be done exactly how it unfolded. But if these are the guys that you want and you feel that this is going to legitimately transform your defense, then I'm all for that. And and if this can get you back into contention and get you back on into the hump, over the hump, then I'm not gonna fault you for trying that and not trying to be like, okay, we're gonna kind of go slow and steady, and we're gonna go through this draft and next draft. Like you're just going for it right now, and I can appreciate that. But that definitely puts a ticking clock on you, though. That puts the pressure on the Falcons, because if it doesn't work, then you implode. Fire coaching staff, fire GM, right? Like everyone gets fired. So, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because you either have made great decisions and now you're winning, or you made bad decisions and now you made bad decisions, and again you cut bait, you move on. So we'll see how it all ends up. But I'm excited to see how it does for sure. And I'm still very, very, very high on the Atlanta Falcons. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the fact that they just won the award for the weirdest selection, according to Sims and Mike Florio? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.